If today's politics really turn on the economy, as 81% of Americans who voted for Donald Trump said it did, then the economy might be flashing a red warning light to the president. Right now, 9 months into Donald Trump's second term, the national unemployment rate is 4.3%. 10.5% for young Americans ages 16 to 24 who face what is being called a no firing, no hiring economy. Just 22,000 jobs were added in August, and new government data shows employers created nearly 1 million fewer jobs over the past year than previously reported. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the overall U.S. tariff rate on imports sits at 19.5%. Tariffs have sharply raised prices for things like coffee, bananas, TVs, and toys. You know this. Last year, a pound of ground coffee cost an average of $6.31. Today, it's $8.87, a 33% increase. What's worse is that economists on both the right and the left agree it is only going to get worse. But again, that's only part of the story. The other part is that the stock market is booming, hitting 28 highs this year. It's all boosted by the big promises of AI. Small business confidence is spiking as well, and the economy itself, according to the Commerce Department, grew at a rate of almost 4% in the second quarter, significantly stronger than previously reported. So how do we look at this? What do we make of all of it? How do we square this circle, as folks say? Are the booms and the busts affecting everybody equally? Well, in order to figure this out and to understand what's happening, I thought we would turn to our very best and our very brightest business correspondent, NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans, who I have all my favorite conversations with.
Me too.
So Howard Lutnick the other day said something that, caught people's attention, and it was that Donald Trump doesn't own the economy until next January. I had Jason Furman on, and he said, yeah, I guess that's fair to say. What do you think?
But today, when you had a 3.8% GDP revision, the White House put out a statement, lauding it, basically, and saying this was because of the president's fine work. So when it's a really good economic number, the president and his team take credit for it. Otherwise, they say at some point in the future, it will be the Trump economy.
Look, they like it when it's good, and they don't own it when it's bad.
Presidents get too much credit and too much blame, I always say, for what goes on in the economy under their watch.
But this president is changing things in this economy in a way that other presidents have not.
Exactly, which is why it's unclear, what exactly. You just talked about all these conflicting signals in the economy. I say usually my crystal ball has been replaced by the crazy 8 ball, like, sounds good, yes, do it. We just don't know how this is going to work out. These are really huge experiments with trade. Tax policy has now been resolved, at least. That's one of the reasons I think that small business confidence number is going up, because at least they know what their taxes are going to look like next year. So that was some resolution.
But they don't know what their tariffs are going to look like.
They don't know what the tariffs are. They know that deregulation is coming, but there's just so much uncertainty. That's I just think the bottom line is that we are in a big experiment right now.
How significant is the unemployment rate? I mean, over 10% for young people?
Yeah.
How disruptive is that?
It's disruptive, especially for college-educated people who are looking for that first job, because companies, I talked about uncertainty, right? So if you're a company making money, as they are, their stocks are up, what do you do if you don't know what's happening next month? We're not firing your good people because you want to keep your head count. Maybe you're not hiring entry-level jobs, and those are the young people. Also, I look at long-term unemployment, and the number of people who've been out of work for 6 months or longer is the highest it's been since the pandemic. And there's a greater share of college-educated people in that 6 months out of work or longer. That worries me a little bit.
How frothy does it make politics? I mean, when you have that many young people who are looking for work and that many people who are out of work for as long as they are, in the past, has that been disruptive politically?
The overall unemployment rate, though, is still 4.3%, which is
it's low.
It's pretty low. So it's, as you said in your beautiful setup, it's a no hire, no fire. That's the situation. Job hugging is what we're hearing about in an overall pretty robust job market. I think, Katie, to me, the biggest thing here is the cost of living. And there's 4 things. I think childcare, I think healthcare and insurance costs, I think housing costs, and I think food. These are the things that people can't you can't trade out of these things. You can swap cuts of meat in the food category, but you still have to buy food. And you look, I go back 5 years. Auto insurance up 60%, shelter 50%, electricity 38%. This is why people feel so crappy, even when I'm talking about record highs in the stock market, because beef is also at record highs and coffee is at record highs. And they're feeling 5 years. They're not feeling year-over-year inflation rates. They're feeling the last 5 years. And it is.
They're looking at the blueberries in the supermarket and saying, are these prices ever going to come down?
Yeah. And look, if they come down, that's a bad thing. I mean, inflation always rises a little bit. Now you've got inflation rising on top of this pile of price increases we had over 5 years. That's what people are feeling.
How do they deal with it in the planning space? I mean, we are going into an expensive part of the year.
Yeah.
Christmas time, it gets expensive both for travel, people wanting to go see family, but also for buying gifts for your kids and for your family. It is a time of year where people save to spend. Do they still have that money to spend?
They save to spend or they spend what they don't have. That's what really worries me. I've been watching Buy Now, Pay Later, which can be an amazing tool for somebody who wants to spread out their purchases, but not an amazing tool if you're the X percent of people who have missed one of these payments and now you're locked into this cycle of spending money.
Because the interest rates on them skyrocket after you miss a payment.
Yeah,
right?
they can, and it's just a kind of a dangerous. It can be a big help if you use it properly, and it can be dangerous if you don't. And I've been watching that part of the credit market, and wondering if that's the hinge for the money people don't have, but the money people are still spending.
Do you see people using those programs more?
So, oh yes, absolutely. It's the fastest growing part of fintech, as they say, financial technology. And it's frictionless. You don't have to do anything. You get this quick, soft credit credit score
That's what I both love and hate about using my phone to pay for things, or Apple Pay is I can just press a button and I've paid for it, but without actually pulling the cash out from my wallet and paying for something. Same thing with credit cards to a degree.
Yeah.
I lose the sense of how much something actually costs and how much I have left. It's not like I spent, what is it now for coffee in New York City, $5, if you're lucky? It's not like I spent $5 on a coffee and I look in my wallet and I only have $15 left for lunch. I just click things on my phone and who knows, it feels like a bottomless pit.
And I feel like credit card debt, at 20% interest rates on a credit card, I mean, that's near record high. 20% on a credit card. I sound like my grandpa. I can't believe you're paying this much for credit, but there are a lot of people who are carrying balances on their credit cards, and even with interest rates starting to drift down a little bit, that's a really dangerous debt levels that we see.
Are they paying for things on their credit card that are essentials?
In some cases, and in some cases, we had couple surveys that showed that buy now, pay later. Some of that was groceries and it was takeout, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this could be really dangerous if people are using this fast, easy credit. It's a loan basically to pay for everyday items. It can be hard to keep track of. But consumers, Katie, are still spending though. I mean, that's one of the reasons why that GDP number was so darn good for the second quarter, because despite all this drama, people are spending their money.
I want to get to the contradictions in a moment, but I just also want to highlight this. This is from June of this year. 46% of U.S. adults have enough emergency savings to cover 3 months of expenses. 30% of people have some emergency savings, but not enough for 3 months. 24% have no emergency savings at all.
24%. Those are people who are living in a recession, essentially. If you don't have any emergency savings, you already are in a recession. There's always a share of the.
If you get a flat tire, what do you do?
Or you're one broken tooth away from medical costs, or car problem, or your boiler breaks. I mean, that's serious. And the fact that in a time when we had high yield savings account and high interest rates, so savers were actually rewarded in the past couple of years for putting their money away, and they were getting interest on their money. That was a good time to be padding your emergency savings. And still, 1 in 5 people couldn't do it because they're just, the money doesn't last the month.
Let's talk about the contradictions here.
Okay.
So you have all that, which you just laid out, but you also, again, have the stock market hitting record highs. It's more than 24 record highs, 24 record highs, I think, this year. How do you make sense of that?
So there's a lot of AI investment and there's a lot of energy in tech. And if you step back from the S&P 500, which if you have stocks in your 401k or your retirement likely reflected the S&P 500. It's like 7 stocks that are a big bulk of that, and those are those big tech stocks. They've been doing well.
Like NVIDIA?
Yeah, and lately I've been watching these companies invest in each other so that they can continue to keep buying and keep. So it's kind of like a
Is that
circle.
a problem?
Not yet, but it's something to watch. I think there's just so much interest and energy in these stocks and money going into them, and fast developments like AI is, this is a game changer, like the steam engine really for the economy and before the Industrial Revolution. But these are early
Is it
days.
though? I mean, or is it being oversold? Are we in a bubble with AI? These AI owners all have incentives to go out and make big claims, like 20% of the workforce is going to be out of work because AI is going to replace all of these entry-level jobs. But we still have examples of coders who say, I got to go back and do all this coding again because AI is getting it wrong. I've used AI in this space to uncover research. It's great for that.
It's helpful, but
it's not good at thinking. Yeah. It's not good at coming up with ideas.
And I just covered a study that showed the first sort of definitive study about job loss, and it showed that the job loss that happened was entry-level jobs were lost, and I want to say it was 14% of jobs in this one arena. But mid-level and late career jobs, experiential jobs where people had to think and draw on experiences they've had in decades before, those were irreplaceable. AI couldn't touch those. So you can teach the AI so far the stuff in the book. You can't teach them how to manage in a workplace.
So on that subject, are there people out there who are worried that we are in a dangerous bubble?
So anybody who tells you this is a bubble and it will pop tomorrow is lying. Nobody knows that the bubble happened until it already popped. And that's just the nature of the beast. We don't know. When Alan Greenspan in 1996 said there was irrational exuberance in the stock market and everyone freaked out, the market doubled from there and rallied for 3 more years. So he was right. But if you had sold, you would have lost, right? So we just don't know. I mean, there are bubbles from time to time. Maybe this is one of those. Maybe part of it is. But for now, people are making a lot of money in the stock market by riding the coattails of this.
Is there a lot of money waiting on the sidelines, though?
Yes, and you've asked me about this before. A record amount of money in these money market funds.
What does that tell you?
So that tells you, so those are making more money than a savings account, right? A lot more money, like 4% I think is the average. So that means people are like, yeah, I've made my money in the stock market, or I have my 401k in the stock market. I'm putting my cash right here.
Because
safe,
they're worried about what?
Safe at 4%. Because they just want to keep it. They maybe have a ton of money in home equity. They've got a ton of money in their 401k in the stock market that's rallied. It makes sense to push some over here.
Doesn't that tell
cash.
You something about this moment? Because would you have seen the same thing 3 years ago or 10 years ago? I mean, is that something that always happens when we hit these record highs? Or is this a larger number than normal? It doesn't make sense that the market is doing so well when we see, I know it's riding on AI, but again, AI hasn't delivered on these promises fully yet. And we're watching tariffs spike, and they're all over the place, and businesses can't plan. You have, yes, people are still spending, but people aren't saving. The economy is not adding jobs at the rate it was. All of these contradictory signals, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to see the stock market hitting record high, record high, record high.
I mean, it hasn't, but it keeps. You've made me speechless. But you're right. All of these things are contradictions. But remember, the stock market doesn't reflect Main Street. It reflects companies, Wall Street. The companies are making a lot of money. The companies have figured out how to continue to make money during this time. Many of the companies aren't passing all of their tariffs on because they know consumers are just about this far away from being like, forget it. We're
how long
tapped out.
Can they do that?
So they did it. They passed on price increases during COVID with enthusiasm, and they made a lot of money. And now they really can't do it again. So they're eating their price increases that they can right now.
But how long can they do that?
No one knows for sure. But they're still making money. And the stock market reflects companies making money. It doesn't reflect the childcare, housing, insurance, and food problem that families have.
If you're talking about that, and again, that's the bulk of voters who deal with those things that voted for Donald Trump. Do you have a sense, I know you travel the country, do you have a sense of whether the economic promise of Trump is, if people are still believing in it?
So I was just in the Midwest where the soybeans are still in the field. They're not quite ready to be harvested yet, but people were wondering. I mean, I wonder if
Who am I going to sell them
wonder
to?
if Bob's going to even harvest them. I mean, is it worth it to get out there with the combine and put the gas in it if he doesn't have a market for these soybeans, or so and so who's building a new silo to store them for another year if they have to because of the tariffs. The president's tariffs against China have caused China to not buy any U.S. soybeans. They're buying from Brazil and I think Argentina. So the farmers I know who were Trump supporters are still Trump supporters. They know they're going to get a check. They are assuming they're going to get a check.
And they're okay with that? They're
I
okay
mean,
with the subsidy?
I guess. I mean, it's disruptive. Some farmers are very worried. Democratic farmers would say that they're very worried about losing markets forever. It's really hard to you don't switch, I'm going to buy American soybeans, now I'm going to buy Brazilian soybeans. Okay, I'm going to go back to buying American soybeans. Once you lose a market, you lose a market. So this is really big and existential in the Midwest. I will say something that I think is fascinating, and maybe this is a psychological profile to be done somewhere in the in a grad school class. But the very people who blamed Biden for the high cost of living don't blame Trump for the same high cost of living. Where Biden got blamed for eggs, Trump has managed, President Trump is able to somehow, it just doesn't stick to him.
He does promise that there is a brighter future, and he doesn't promise it in any abstract way. He says, I'm bringing all the manufacturing back. And he's telling people that they can go back to a past that they understood. And I think that's part of it. They're just waiting it out. I don't know when if he doesn't deliver on it, they get, impatient with it and stop waiting it out.
He's not running again, so then who do they blame? That's the other thing. Do they blame his party? Who do they blame if that trust?
Well, I mean, I guess
in
the
him...
Democrats don't have a message on it. Have you heard a coherent economic message coming from the Democratic Party?
I mean, a lot of them talk about affordability and talk about how the Trump attempts to address affordability, which is extending tax cuts that people already had, giving more tax cuts to the rich, $1,000 baby Trump account for every baby that's born. Some of these things aren't kind of landing, I think, but I don't know. Can the Democrats just criticize those things and not have their own message? I'm not sure.
Weird times.
I think affordability is the key to everything here. Affordability is the key to everything.
And Zoran Mamdani has used that to his advantage here in New York.
And it's not compared with last year. It's not a 2.9%, inflation rate. Nobody cares about a 2.9% inflation rate, which is too high, by the way. It's on top of 5 years of rising prices. So people feel a 5-year post-COVID just earthquake, in their personal finances. I mean, I read you those numbers. Auto insurance up 60%, shelter up 51%, electricity up 38% in 5 years. Your pay was up 20%.
Can I ask one last question before we wrap this up? How does the business community feel about Donald Trump right now? How does someone like Jamie Dimon feel about Donald Trump?
Well, do you mean, I'm not talking about Jamie Dimon, I'm talking about the business community at large. Do you mean in the Oval Office, or when they're meeting with him, or do you mean when they're behind the scenes?
I can see what they say in the Oval Office. I'm talking about behind the scenes.
They have teams of people whose job it is to manage the White House, to manage,
Do they think they're just waiting out of 3 years, or do they think that they're living in a permanent change?
It's funny. I'm trying to think, because this was an off-the-record conversation, so I'm going to be careful how I say this. There are some who think that tariffs are here to stay. Donald Trump tried tariffs in 2018. Joe Biden kept them on and added some more. That's revenue the government wants and needs. It helps with the fiscal situation. There are some executives who think we're just going to wait until the next administration and we're going to be able to lobby and get some relief for my company. There are others, some top people, who think tariffs are here to stay, so everybody's got to figure out how to deal with them.
Okay, one last question. I know I promised one before. Have you seen a moment where so many economists across the political spectrum, conservative economists, liberal economists, agree that what's happening is not good?
Yeah, it's pretty unanimous. I mean, it's pretty unanimous that, but economists don't want to rock the boat too. And Donald Trump is rocking the boat, So you've got two completely different worldviews here. And there are Donald Trump supporters who I know who want him rocking the boat, who think that the economy wasn't working for them before, so blow it all up. That is truly a minority worldview there. But no, economists.
But it's not even though. There's a majority worldview among, I think, Americans that the system's not working and something has to change. You can argue about how to do it, and certainly some people think Donald Trump's way is maybe a better way, and others think it is crazy. But I think the idea that it's not working is pretty pervasive. All right.
That was fun.
That was fun. Did we miss anything?
No.
No. Christine, love you. Thanks for sitting with me, helping me understand this crazy topsy-turvy boat rocking world. Thank you.